we're still a safe city. What happened last night was an anomaly. The shooter didn't have any real motive that we know of. It was all random. It was a very strange thing. It hasn't changed how safe this community is. It's a horrible, tragic situation. Again, we're going to continue to work with the victims and their families and reach out to them. But don't forget, Lafayette was a safe city yesterday. It's a safe city today. Thank you.
Any questions?
What do you think he's been doing since he came here? Why do you think he chose Lafayette? Why was he here? Why was he up for Phoenix City, Alabama?
We actually just had a discussion about that a while ago. We're trying to determine his timeline as to when he was traveling. We know he entered the state sometime around July 2nd or July 3rd. And we know that he's been up and down the interstate a few times based on his visits to other communities. And so that's what investigators are working on right now, trying to establish a timeline, trying to find maybe people he communicated with, trying to determine what his purpose was here. We know that he spoke with some people about maybe some business opportunities, maybe opening a new business here in Lafayette. A lot of entrepreneurs come here because of the type city we have here, and so maybe that's what attracted him here, but so far we don't have any of those answers. We hope through review of his journals and the things he kept in his room, we'll be able to establish a better picture of what drove him here and what drove him to commit these acts.
His mom sent him money, $5,000. He was looking for a job. Police detectives located where he was actually hanging out trying to get a job. He needed money. And, why he changed the license plate, switched on his car, probably to make a getaway. Why did he have those outlandish wigs in the room with his glasses? We've had all kinds of information that came forward through the internet and through the media, location of other sites of somebody that had on a wig and other locations. So certainly we follow up on every single one of those. We want to pull the video footage in each of those locations so we can try to put him in there, try to build a timeline. I think once we build that timeline, we can try to figure out why Lafayette, why this location. You know, there's all kinds of speculation out there.
What was his day-to-day life in the Motel 6? What was he doing? Was he staying in his room? Was he out and about? What was he doing?
No, he was out and about. We know he did some drinking while he was there, but he was out and about, and he was contacting different people, not only in this community, but in other communities. So he was circulating while he was here. And whether he arrived July 2nd or July 3rd, we haven't established that yet. But we know he's probably been to this location more than once. We learned that today. And so maybe he was testing, maybe he was checking, maybe he was determining, is there anything that could be a soft target for him?
Can you talk about what kind of entrepreneurship he was trying to, what kind of business he wanted to get into?
I know that he had discussed with a couple of businessmen a 2-minute oil change service. So that was one of the things we found out as we've done more inquiry into some of the information that we began to develop today as we did interviews and talked to family members.
Lawyer, CPA.
I have a question for the governor. Just a little while ago, Representative Terry Landry, who you know is from Lafayette, former state police superintendent, he said that this is an opportunity to start a conversation about gun control and how to keep guns out of the hands of mentally ill people. What would you support as a leader to make it tougher for people with mental illness to get guns?
Well, a couple of things. There'll be a right time and place to have that conversation. We're less than 24 hours out. We got 2 families that need to bury their loved ones. We got families waiting for their loved ones to leave the hospital, and they're praying for their full recoveries. I think now is the time to focus on those victims. There will be an absolute appropriate time for us to talk about policies and politics, and I'm sure that folks will want to score political points off this tragedy as they've tried to do off previous tragedies. Right now, let's focus on these families. You know, it hasn't even been 24 hours. Let's focus on these families. Let's give them the love and the support and the prayers they need. I think that's the appropriate thing. I think it's the right thing for us to be doing right now.
Governor, when will that time be? We just had a shooting last week week in Chattanooga. We've had them leading up to this almost every month. What did that time be? Because over and over and over again, we keep hearing the same thing from our political leaders, and you want to be the leader of not only the United States, but of the free world. What would you do different to stop these tragedies from happening all over the country?
Look, you can ask as many times as you want. My answer is not changing. I today talked to the father of a man who lost his daughter. Right now, the important thing is to show them all the love and prayer and support. I'm more than happy to talk about this in a few days. Right now is not the time. It has been less than 24 hours. Lafayette's grieving. Let us bury our dead. Let us mourn for those that have been killed. Let us actually take care of those that are still in the hospital. It hasn't been 24 hours. Let us mourn.
The country in Chattanooga, what do you say to them? It's been over a week.
Look, let us mourn. You can ask me these questions in a couple of days. I'm not going anywhere. I'm happy to talk about this. We're happy to talk politics, but not here, not now. Now's the time to grieve. Now's the time to mourn. Now's the time to come together and show that Lafayette's resilient and we can get through this. I'm not shy about providing my opinions on any topic. Every reporter here knows that. I'm more than happy to talk to folks. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not disappearing. But right now, let's actually focus. I hope you'll do stories about the two young women who've lost their lives. And I hope you'll talk about the doctors, and I hope you'll talk about the heroic law enforcement officers that ran towards danger. And I hope you'll talk about the teachers that not only helped each other but helped others. I hope you'll talk about the couple that transported this victim directly to the hospital. Now's the time to focus on them. Now's the time to show them that good and love will triumph over evil. Now's the time to show them there is tomorrow, there is hope. This was an awful, senseless, evil tragedy. Now it's time to let these law enforcement officials do their jobs and try to make sense, like the FBI agent said. They're trying to make sense out of a senseless act. You know, we'd all love to come up with a predictable reason for why this madman chose Lafayette, chose this movie theater, because as a father, we want to keep our children safe. If we could figure out if there was some predictable reason, we would know how to make sure that this doesn't happen to our family members. It could have been our families, it could have been your families. And that is what is so deeply frustrating about these kinds of acts of violence. And the law enforcement, look, they've got more work to do. They're still going through videotapes. They're still going through journals. They're still processing evidence. I suspect we'll let them do their jobs. I suspect we're never going to find, there's never a satisfying answer, but I don't suspect we're going to find any kind of explanation. We'll let them do their jobs. But to date, there doesn't seem to be any type of explanation for why Lafayette, why this theater. There doesn't seem to be a connection between this shooter and these innocent folks whose lives he permanently disrupted. And again, as a father, I understand why people want to find that connection. If it were more predictable, it'd make us feel a little bit better about our own safety and our own children. But right now, I think it is time to let these families grieve. Now is the time for us to keep them in our thoughts and prayers. There's still folks in the hospital. There's still folks that are still getting medical care. There's still folks waiting in the hospitals, waiting for their loved ones to get out. Now's the time to love on them, to pray for them, to support them. I'll be more than happy to come back and talk policy and politics at another time. Now's not the time.
Governor, are you staying in the area for a while, kind of giving up the campaign, just a pause button? Yeah.
Look, absolutely. I'm going to stay here as long as we need to continue to provide whatever support. Look, the chief's done a phenomenal job, but we're going to stay and provide whatever support we can for as long as we need to do that. This is the most important thing going on right now. The campaign can certainly wait.
Governor, if I may, describe what impressed you the most on the crime scene. What shocked you the most?
That's for you. What shocked you the most?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you was talking. Well, yeah, look, when you walk through the movie theater, first of all, you see the pools of blood. You see the victims' pools of blood. You see where where he committed suicide. You see where he killed himself. But in the middle of all that, you just see the normal debris, what you'd expect in a normal movie theater. You see where somebody left a soft drink. You see where somebody left a wrapper. And it looks, there are bullet holes, there's damage in several areas. It's obvious, he fired several different times. But two things. One, it looks like a normal movie theater. Looks like a movie theater you and I have walked into probably hundreds of times. Looks like the same movie theater my kids walk into several times over this summer break back in Baton Rouge. It looks like a regular movie theater. And you can picture yourself walking in there to watch a movie on a Thursday night like these folks did. And in the middle of that, you see this horrific violence. You see where they've cut open a seat to get out the casing. You see where again, you still see the blood on the floor. They haven't come in and cleaned up all the evidence. So you still see these jarring reminders of violence. The second thing that is obvious is, and again, I praise the Lafayette Police Department and their investigators. They walked us through, and you start at the back of the theater, and you see the trajectory of the different, this madman shot. Look, this wasn't a sudden burst. This was, again, and they're still piecing together the evidence, and they still got witness interviews to process. But what it appears is that this was slow and methodical. This was a gunman that took his time. After he fired the first couple of shots, as people got up, he got up and methodically worked his way down. And then you can tell when he tried to run for the exit, and then he came back and he shot a few shots upwards. This was a slow and methodical. Look, it was barbaric. I don't know whether you want to call it execution or whatever you want to call it, a massacre. It was barbaric. This wasn't just one single burst. It wasn't targeted at one person. You can tell where he did damage. It literally spread across the width of the theater. And some of the folks who were most seriously hurt, obviously there was one fatality right in front of him, but some of the folks that had the most serious damage were actually to the right of where he was as he was shooting down as people got up. It seems, and we may not ever know, but it just seems he purposely chose his seat up at the top where he had that vantage point over everybody. It seems like he chose, and we won't know, but it seems like he chose a theater that had an exit where he could get out to his car. It seems like, you've heard that there was a wig in the car. You've heard that, he kept his keys down there. It seemed like he had planned this. And they'll find out more. They'll find out how many times he'd come here previously, and they'll find out as much as they can about the planning that went into this. One of the things I think was shocking was not only the horrific graphic scenes of violence in this normal place of entertainment for families. As I walked into that theater, as I walked by, there was a room still set up for a kid's birthday party. I think it was a kid. It looked like a kid's birthday party. As we walked by the concession stand, there was a woman's purse was still left where she'd been ordering her concessions. There's still food, the nachos and the popcorn that you'd expect in a movie theater. People ran out and they didn't come back. And so it's literally as if people just left in mid-activity. They left the movie theaters and all those different theaters. What's horrific about this is, again, the violence and the senseless loss of life. And to see that intermixed with what should be a normal place of entertainment for families and children.
Was everybody shot the first time, or did he? I'm wondering about the sequence of things. He went back in and shot again.
We know that he shot a number of people the first time. When he went outside, he apparently saw the police car. He had dropped a magazine, so he inserted another, re-entered and fired 4 more times. We think possibly that at least one victim was hit in that second burst of gunfire. The 3 shots at the people still in the audience, and 1 shot into himself.
Have you ruled out whether or not he had any help? I mean, are you looking into whether or not he had talked to anybody about this, planned on anything?
That's something that we've kept an open mind about. We are scouring his journals, trying to find associates, people he may have befriended, but thus far, a little less than 24 hours into the investigation, we don't show that he had any accomplices. We don't show that he had any help. We don't show that there was a second person maybe waiting and that sort of thing to aid in his escape. So at this point, we say no, not so far. Sure, his car was parked on this side of the theater between Ducey Road and the building. He was parked right at that emergency exit. If you come out of that emergency exit in Theater 14, there's a sidewalk there that leads to the parking lot, and that's exactly where his car was parked.
Chief, was there any security inside the cinema?
No, there was not, and that's another thing that we're concerned about. Normally, the cinemas employ police officers on Friday and Saturday nights on the property because of the large crowds that attend movies. Thursday nights is not a big attendance night, so there was no security on the property. I know people asked about the 2 police officers who were in this area. Those 2 police officers were on patrol and had stopped there to, one was a sergeant and one was a patrol officer. I think they were exchanging paperwork when the call came in.
Can you give us their names?
No.
Chief, you mentioned that there are 5 still hospitalized. Can you characterize the condition of the 5?
The 5 that are still hospitalized, 4 are stable. 1 is critical, perhaps being updated, we hope, this evening to guarded.
At the end of the day, however tragic it is, 2 people lost their lives, but it was only 2. Is there something of a miracle that there weren't more people killed?
We feel like it was. He had 2 10-round magazines. I know there was information earlier that he had numerous magazines in a pouch. That pouch turned out to be one of our police officers' first aid kits. He had 2 magazines. We think both of them were fully loaded. That gave him 20 rounds. Out of 20 rounds, he shot 11 people. But some people suffered multiple wounds. One gentleman was shot 4 times. So,
He shot all 20 rounds.
yes.
I just want to say this. I want to praise the chief's men. You asked about, not more fatalities. The reality is his men's quick reaction. He mentioned these first aid kits that he ordered for officers that get shot in the line of duty. They quickly applied those kits. We saw the debris of some of those kits inside. And look, I think without a doubt, if it hadn't been for his officers' quick reaction, Canadian Ambulance and the local hospitals, you could have had more fatalities. So I want to praise the chief and his men. His foresight for ordering that equipment, those supplies, and his men for applying it. They were here literally almost instantaneously to apply that life-saving equipment.
Chief, I'm sorry if you answered this before, but do you have any evidence that shows whether or not he's been to the theater before last night?
If what?
That if he's been to the movie theater before last night?
Well, we're checking that now. The theater does have video in the lobby, and so our job now is to go back and start looking at previous weeks. We're also checking other theaters to see if he visited other theaters. There's an effort ongoing to talk to other theater owners and managers and showing them photographs and determining whether or not he has visited other locations.
Talking to the witnesses in there, did the shooter say anything? Do they remember him saying anything before or during the rampage?
No. No.
Is there any indication he was following the case here in Colorado, the movie theater case there?
People have mentioned that. It certainly is coincidental that Colorado this week had, a trial, and I don't think that guy has been sentenced over there yet, but we're looking at those similarities.
It's all broadcast live.
Yeah, and we don't have any information to indicate that he watched that or anything like that.
Chief, were any of the moviegoers or the victims who were inside the theater, were any of them carrying concealed weapons? Were any of them have their own personal firearms? If so, did they respond at all to this shooting?
We don't know of anyone who was carrying a firearm in that particular theater. As I said earlier, there are over 300 people in the building. 25 tickets were sold for this particular movie at that particular time, and we think there were about 25 or 26 people in the theater.
Chief, there was an incident that we got reported the week of July 13th where a household was reported to have visited a food bank in Lake Charles. You know anything about that?
Yeah, we have investigators that went to Lake Charles today to interview those folks. I think it was a church, maybe, or a service run by a church, and I think they gave him some food and some money. And we're working with the state police detectives and the Calcasieu Parish Sheriff's Office to talk to those folks and determine if that is the case.
Thank you very much.
We'll get back.
Will there be any additional updates?
No, tonight there won't be any additional updates. We have a lot of work to do, and we will notify you when it is time to provide some additional information.
GIOs will be here though.
Yeah, our public information officers will be here, and if we have anything new to report that's urgent, we'll have the public information officers do that.
If you have questions, you can follow through them and we'll get y'all those answers as quick as we can.
Yeah.
Thank you.